Hi everyone. So, if you live in the country, you don't need to own a tractor, but you need to know someone who does. And this is Herb Beck, and he's amazing. So, one of the things, what causes stress in our lives, right? It's when there's something that we need to do or we really, really want to do, and then we perceive that we can't do it or that something's going to get in the way. That's basically the source of stress and frustration. And anxiety. Anxiety is fear that we won't be able to do it, and stress is facing those challenges and not knowing yet how to solve them, and frustration is maybe when you've tried a solution, it hasn't worked yet, and you got to try another one, but you're not quite sure what to do yet. So I don't really suffer anxiety a lot because I thank God, am smart enough, trained enough by life. I don't know what the deal is. I don't obsess about the future. Honestly, you know what it really is that the future holds so many unrecognized gifts, and that every time a door closes, a window's going to open. And my life was so inconsistent as a child. I moved so often, never knew what was going to happen next, that I just survived each of those unexpected changes, the constant moves, the new locations. And that somehow just sort of taught me that, you know, when things change, it can actually get better, or at least be as good. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get worse. So I just have this calmness about the future. But what does get to me is when there are things that I really want to do. And it's not like, oh, I want to buy a new car. No, we're talking about like, I have worked for 20 years. My family has worked for 20 years to try to get rid of invasive plants on this property, because when we moved here it was covered, and we did it all by hand and with like once a year mowing, and we didn't use any chemicals, we didn't use any shortcuts, and we've worked so hard. And so I was feeling stressed out because I only have so much physical strength, only so many hours in the day, like all of us. And I thought, I'm gonna fall behind on the Canadian thistle. It's gonna bloom in this big patch, it's gonna blow everywhere, and I'm gonna like slide backwards. And I'm failing to achieve this goal I have of being a really good steward of the land. And so then I just called up my friend Herb Beck, and I said, in addition to coming out in September, which is his once a year normal thing, can you please come out like right now and mow these patches? Because literally, after 20 years, we're really blessed. We have 2 places on the property that still have Canadian thistle, and everywhere else it's gone. And I'm like, I don't want to lose this thing we worked so hard for. So he decided to squeeze me in, and he's just charging me for the hour instead of like a whole day rate. So this area right here was full of Canadian thistle. There's my friend Herb Beck driving by in his tractor. He's so awesome. There we go. And I think he's pretty much done. And then over there, this area could be called the pit type of a thing, or the lower field. And this whole area was just all Canadian thistle. Now, don't get me wrong, there was grass here too. But there was so much Canadian thistle walking through the grass, trying to do anything, you're just getting poked constantly. But right there, where the, there you go, where those beautiful bracken fern start, they shade it out, so there's no thistle in there. And here, this is what I'm talking about, because these guys are inside my fire pit, so I'm gonna hand pull these guys. These are Canadian thistle. And here's the cool thing, Canadian thistle in Canada is no big deal. Canadian thistle in Canada in the middle of July and August, when it's at its full growth, you can walk on top of it barefoot and it's not gonna hurt you, because Canada is so cold and has such a short growing season. But then when it came down here, or California, I guess, but especially down here in Washington, it gets really tall and gets super spiky, and it's just super painful, and it spreads like no one's business because it's, you know, an invasive species. So there's a couple right here I'm gonna get to, but honestly, you know, every year, even as a full family, we would try to get the Canadian thistle out of this field area, and we couldn't do it. We would get 80 to 90% of it. And look, I'm gonna have to do the edges, because you can see here's a little bit. It's not in the bracken fern, but this was the edge. And so anywhere there's sunlight, and this guy is as tall as I am. No joke. What makes me a little sad is that there are honeybees that really love the Canadian thistle. And, you know, I'm a little sad to take away this food source, but there are a million flowers in my garden and other places for them to eat. So yeah, there is a little bit of Canadian thistle right here, and there's one right there. It'll take me about 2 hours to get the last of these out of here and prevent any seeds. So the whole point is you don't want new seeds. And so, tansy ragwort is poisonous to livestock. I don't know how long their seeds last. We get them up 100% every year. When we first moved here, there was probably 1,000 tansy ragwort that would have grown on the property. And now every year I pull up about 30, maybe 40 at the most. Huge difference. And that's on 5 acres. Like, that's nothing. It's the easiest thing in the world. And then the Scotch broom, those seeds can live for 90 years. So the whole point, we got rid of the Scotch broom basically 100% a few years ago. I hired some young men after we'd done a lot of work for years and years and years, done a lot of work. I finally decided in this one patch I had back here, I'll show you, I said, hey, I'm gonna pay a group of guys to sit on the ground, crawl on your knees, and pull up every single Scotch broom, no matter how small, every baby, because there weren't any big ones anymore. We've been mowing once a year, and Scotch broom has to get to about the age of 3 or 4 before it really sends out seeds. So we were doing really good, but we still had a seed bank, is what they call it, and we still had babies. So this area here, you can see those yellow guys, that's my current crop of tansy ragwort. I'm pulling those out today. And I think so that's like it. The entire field has a little tiny, 12 plants? But this whole field had baby Scotch broom, and it was constantly coming up and competing with the grass and everything else. So I paid these guys, and for like a month, I had people, crawling their way through the giant piles of Scotch broom babies. And you know what? It worked. There's no Scotch broom. So I'm just going to clean up the edges of the Canadian thistle, which is now a human job that I'm capable of. All of my stress is gone, thank goodness, because of a tractor. So, people, seriously, living in the country, I love gasoline. I love tractors. I love big equipment. I love my gas lawnmower. That's an interesting thing. I'll just finish on this. So there's this idea about moving to batteries and electric everything, and a lot of people like the idea. I don't think they've researched it. When you research it, you start to realize it doesn't actually, the math isn't mathin'. Really, it's not. So I bought this simple Honda Ready Start mower 20 years ago, and it still runs. It's perfectly fine. We mow trails so we can walk through the property without having to trudge through giant tall grass. Otherwise, we only have Herb come out in September and do a full mow of the entire property. So we're not doing a ton of mowing, but still, I think we use about maybe 5 gallons of gas. For mowing. And so here we go. Look how beautiful it looks. Yay! In about a week, if I hadn't done this, there would have been purple and white flowers, thistle flowers, all over that. And then they would have gone puffy, and then they would have been floating through the air all over the place. And I have done it. Thank you to modern technology and a tractor. So I went in because my lawnmower needed a little bit of help. Its carburetor had finally given out. $15 to buy a new carburetor. No big deal to get it installed, under $100, and now it's going to run for another 20 years. And when I was there, I was a little frustrated because there'd been actually a confusion about what was wrong. It was the second time I brought it in. It all got worked out, but the guy there, he's one of the new people who I don't know. He says to me, well, maybe just get an electric mower. They're really good now. They can go really far. You can get them on a charge and you can do so much mowing. You know, it used to be electric mowers were for people in the suburbs and they had literally a cord and you plugged them into your house and then you had to not run over the cord. Okay, now they've got more substantial farmy type of, you know, bulky mowers with these big fancy batteries. And I said, oh, so when I bought my mower, it was 20 years ago, but it cost about $300. And right now, if I were to buy a simple gas combustion vehicle lawnmower, it would cost about $450. So in 20 years with inflation, the price has gone up $150. So I was like, oh, how much are your electric mowers that you're talking about? $800. It's like, oh, and I don't doubt that it would have the power and go the distance. And then I said, $800, okay. And how long does the battery last before you have to replace it? He goes, well, depending on how much you use it, it's going to be, 3 to 4 years. If you don't use it much, it might make it 5, but batteries just don't like sitting a lot. So like really about 4 years. I said, oh, how much does it cost to replace the battery? He goes, about $500 to $600. So I'm supposed to spend $800 to buy something so that every 5 years, if I'm being generous, I'm going to spend another $600 because inflation's only going to go up, most likely, every 5 years. So that would have been $800 plus 20 years later, you've replaced the battery 3 times. That's $1,800 plus $800. So that's $2,600. And you're paying for the electricity that you're using. I'm going to stick with the good, awesome, beautiful gas guzzling engine. So, yeah, living in the country is very informative, very educational. You learn a lot. You start to see the value in things. The people who live in the city or the suburb, well, they won't see the value because they don't have the need for it. But this is Mother Nature. The city isn't Mother Nature. This is Earth. This property has 4 months of apples, 4 months of plums, a month of gummy berries, a month of gooseberries, about 3 months of raspberries. I've got fuyu persimmons, and I just had a month and a half of cherries. I'm going to have a month and a half of grapes. The list goes on. We have about a month and a half of strawberries that we're near the end of right now. And the list goes on. This is Earth. This is life. And when people live in places like this, they discover a lot that you can't discover living in the city or in the suburbs, even if you send your kids to a farming summer camp, okay? So I think that the people who live in the country, who are increasingly a smaller and smaller percentage of our society, really should be listened to. They have so much experience, wisdom, and having people who are city and suburban dwellers being elected and then passing statewide laws that affect the countryside based upon the advice usually of someone who I've had people who the state sent out to do evaluations and work with me on the property, different programs. Like there was a horse program, so I used to have horses, and there was this program designed to help people not have mud on their property because it's better for the environment if you don't have mud. And I've actually never had mud on this property. But when I got the horses, before I got them, I had this program come out. And they're like, we're going to tell you how we want you to do things. If you do it the way we want you to do it, we will pay a percentage of the cost. We'll reimburse you for a percentage of the cost, right? And they wanted me to put gravel into my paddock for my horses. And this expert who works for the county or the state, one or the other, and goes around telling everyone what they should do. He's like 5/7, I think is what it was. He told me what to do. I did it. I brought my horses in. Within a week, my new horse was lame, and because the gravel was bruising his feet. And then when I talked to local horse owners about what I was doing, they were horrified. My horses had to be put out on pasture, and we had to put a bunch of this hog stuff on top, which is, it's actually just like a bunch of ground up tree stuff, in order to save the horses from going lame. So you get people who are hired by the state, and the people who hire them live in the city or the suburbs, and they get hired out of a college with a degree because they got an ag degree or whatever degree they got, and then they're told by some other people that this works. They believe it's true. They go out, they tell people what to do, and they don't actually own horses, they don't own land, they don't know what they're talking about, and then your animals get injured. Like, so all I'm saying is, I've personally learned so much in 20 years, and I was previously a small town, suburb, city dwelling human. And there's wealth out here of knowledge. There's so much wealth and knowledge out here. Everyone who is being scared by the government to fear that Mother Earth is dying, and they want to dive in and save the world from the farmers, from the cows, from the timber industry, from. There's just so much you don't know. And it's easy for them to sell you a story that sounds very convincing, and it's really not accurate. So I guess that's the message of the day. And now, yay! I get to spend the next hour wandering around and cleaning up the little edges. Those guys will be gone. It'll take me about 10 minutes to pull them up by the roots. There's one set of them over on the other side of my blackberry circle, and those guys were too hard to pull up, so I brought my clippers. Okie doke. See y'all later. I'm a happy camper.